Say yes to new beginnings.
Yes.
Say yes to new standards of excellence.
Yes.
Say yes to engaging reportage with a difference.
Yes.
Introducing Yes International Magazine. The time to say yes to your dreams and aspirations is here.
All right. Now let's come back to the book proper again. Now your book has all of 176 pages. Could you usher our viewers briefly into the pages? And there are 10 chapters also. Could you explain to our viewers what each chapter, or just in a summary, what each chapter is talking about?
Well, okay, going chapter by chapter may take so much time, but let me just in a nutshell tell you what the novel is all about.
All right.
The novel is about a family.
Okay.
They are from an Osu kindred within a community, an imaginary fictional community called Isiago. Okay.
Yes.
The man has 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters. Okay. And then the children are all very brilliant. The first son, who is the main character, very intelligent. We started from him, his activities in primary school. The book actually opened with him on stage when he was performing in primary school, the prodigal son, which is the Bible story of the prodigal son. Okay. And he performed excellently, and he tried to show his talents, his intelligence, his wisdom. The future was there for this young man. He was an all-rounder. And so also the siblings. And then the story started developing. Their father was the secretary of the kindred. They were discussing this Osu thing, and he used to go to the village every third Sunday of the month for the family meeting. They had sent a delegation to the Igbo and the Igbo in council to look into the matter and see how the Osu tag can be removed from them. So one of these Sundays he went for the family meeting and was coming back from the village to Enugu, and he had an accident and died in Meku corner. Okay. So the wife, who is also a school teacher, had to take the burden of training these children. And she continued to struggle without their father training them. So the young man, Chidi, went to the university, was doing very well, graduated with first class. In the university, he met a girl who is from his community. Because all along, he didn't know they were Osu. Because when they were very young when the father died. And most women, when things like that happen, they focus on the children, they hardly go to the village. So nobody ever talked about being Osu in their family. They didn't know they were Osu because they were not going to the village, they were in the township and everything. So he met this young lady in the university who happens because he was the Ishugu Students Association in the university. When they discovered he's from their community, they approached him to come and join them. So he joined them in his, I think, third year or final year, final year, and he was very active. And then he fell in love with this young girl, who happens to be the daughter of the Onowu of his own community. Okay, but they didn't know. So when they graduated and went for youth service, they were seeing each other. The guy served in Lagos. So you see certain things. The story now, during his youth service, there are stories about, Yoruba culture, life of a youth corper, and so. This story, though it is about Osu, my worthy brother, is embedded in a beautiful story of life and everything life is all about. It's not just Osu. It's an interesting story. When people pick it up, they don't drop it. A lot of people have told me. I have some even primary schools now, preparators of primary school, asking me to send them copies for their library. That's how interesting, and it is written in a language anybody can understand. There are also some secondary schools that are asking for it. I intend to introduce it to universities. So now, during the youth service, they agreed December of the youth service that the young man should come and see her parents and introduce himself as his fiancé, so that they won't be raising eyebrows if they see them together. They intend to get married as soon as they settle down and all that. So the young man went to the village alone. He didn't even tell the mother where he was going to. And then you could see the beautiful scenery when he was walking the paths of the village, very well described in details. It was not until he approached the compound that he realized that this girl's father must be a very wealthy man. He wanted to turn back. His courage almost failed him, but he summoned that courage and then went in and knocked, and they received him. And the lady was already waiting, ushered him, went and invited the mother, introduced him to the mother, then later went and called the father, the Onowu himself. So the Onowu comes into the sitting room, welcomes the young man, asks him a few questions, and then asks him where he came from. And he said he's from the same town, Isugu. He said which community, which village. He told him which kindred. He told him. The moment he mentioned the kindred, the man
knew that something.
The man shouted and told him, "You cannot marry my daughter. It is not possible." So he was shocked. He was like, "Why?" Meanwhile, before then, there are things that happened. When he was in school, he was made the chairman of the end of year party organizing committee of their students' union. So they had to go along the line, meet some of the people from the community, the chairman of the town, soliciting for funds for the end of year party. So every time they go to meet one prominent person and he introduces himself, there's a way they always behave when they realize he was an Osu, but they will not tell him. And he kept wondering in his mind, what is going on? Why are people reacting every time I mention where I came from? But he didn't, he just waved it. So that day in the Onowu's palace, the Onowu was screaming, "You can't marry my daughter." So he was like, "Why, sir?" And the Onowu bluntly told him in his face, "Because you are an Osu, you can't marry." And that was his realization, that he was an Osu. And then everything else in his life started spiraling down from there. He collapsed, he was taken to the hospital and all that, but everything started going down. He eventually did his PhD, was lecturing in the university, but became a thorn in the flesh of the students. That one is another story altogether. Became, all of us had those kind of lecturers.
Yes.
And then, but his younger brother, Tobenna, when he came back that day from the village and told them they were Osu, his younger brother took it, was stronger about it. He also went on to graduate as a pharmacist, was working in Onyia, eventually met an Indian man, and they opened a pharmaceutical company. So the younger brother became very rich and very wealthy and more stable. And it's a beautiful story, Azuh. But to summarize it, the ending, how did it all end? Eventually, the younger brother went to the village, built a palace, the most magnificent house you could see in the village. The day of the opening, the two younger sisters were also having their traditional marriage the same day, invited everybody. The Igwe had to come for it. So you can imagine going to the house of Azuh. Then, after all that, the Igwe died. A lot of African culture, each of this stage, the traditional marriage culture beautifully exposed. When the Igwe died, the burial and everything beautifully. So on the day of the last Ofala, a lot of things had happened. The chief now came there, but he was. Now, one thing the story did, Azuh, is it was told in such a way that it is not very clear You cannot say what was Chidi's problem, because at the end of the day, it was assumed that he went mad, right? But what led to the madness? Was it the realization that he was an Osu? Or was it the atrocities, some of the things he was that against the laws of the land that he was doing? Because the deity that they belonged to, Ideji Ogugu, had ruled that none of them should build an upstairs. They can't build an upstairs. And he went ahead to build an upstairs. In the community, they don't climb palm trees with ladder. He went ahead to climb palm trees. He was doing all sorts of things the law of the land said they shouldn't do. So the people were saying that it is the deity that was affecting him. Meanwhile, you, the reader, you are wondering, is it the psychological pain of being an Osu? So that beautiful psychological, intertwine is there. You begin to ask yourself, what is the problem? So, but the thing is, at the end of the day, after the last of Allah, you don't know who was now chosen to be the Igwe. And by now, at every stage, something keeps pushing him to retaliate on what the Ono, because he saw the Ono as the person that ruined his life. So on the day of the last of Allah, for instance, when he was there, when the ceremony was going on, he kept hearing this voice that was pushing him to go and attack the Ono. But on that day, he was able to control himself and just walked away and left. But on the day the Ono was now being crowned the Igwe, he was there. Now, somehow, they had discovered where their forefather came from originally. You know one thing with this Osu, my body brother, is if the Osus discover where their forefather or great-grandfather that went to there came from, they can go back to their land. And when they go back to their land, they become freeborns. Are you following me?
Yeah, interesting. Yes, I am.
If any Osu can find out originally where he came from, and the people, his original relatives, are willing to accept him, and they agree that he's from there, he can go back there and become a freeborn. So this was what happened to them along the line. Some people came from the neighboring town where their forefather came from, that ran to Ideji Ogugu. Why did their forefather run to Ideji Ogugu? He lent money to his uncle. He lent some money to his uncle in exchange for some land. And the uncle was supposed to retrieve the land whenever he paid. The children of the uncle grew up, his cousins grew up, realized they cannot pay, and they plotted to eliminate him and his family at night to retrieve their land. So one of them, the youngest brother that he was friendly with, came and revealed the plan to him. So he had to run overnight with his family to Ideji Ogugu for protection. That's how the family became Osu.
Wow.
So along the line, that original family where their forefather came from were having problem with the land of that same young man that ran away. For centuries, anybody that wanted to do anything on that land met untimely death. So their grandfathers had asked questions, and they were told that their son who owned that land is in the neighboring town as an Osu. They should go and bring him back and hand his land over to him. So for centuries, those lands were lying fallow. Nobody can do anything until the young people of this generation who grew up had the story. Times have changed. They summoned up courage, brought money, brought everything, told the elders to go and look for their brother and bring him home. So that was
how it was resolved.
And told them. So they started planning. Chidi eventually started planning to go back. His brother helped him to build a new house where they came from. So that Christmas, he was supposed to go back. He was a changed person. He was now talking about getting married. I'm trying to cut it short. It's a beautiful, detailed story. I'm trying to cut it short. He was looking forward to getting married and living a normal life and becoming a free man in the community. But he wanted to celebrate Christmas for the last time in this Ishiago with his brother, because Tobenna refused to go back. He said he has invested so much in Ishiago, so if he's going to go back, it's not immediately. And so they went. That same Christmas was when they went for the coronation of the Onowu, the same Onowu as Igwe. And when they were sitting there, he was looking forward to going back to his own community the next day. He was supposed to go back the following morning. And then, all of a sudden, there is this music, this traditional ancient war dance called Ipa. That's what we call it in my community. The Ipa war music, when they play it, it is believed that the spirits are behind the music. In fact, in my community, the truth of the matter is that men have had, under the influence of the Ipa war music, to confess their atrocities without anybody prompting them. They will tell you who they killed, how they killed them. They'll be like somebody who is under the influence of some forces. It has happened over and over when that Ipa music is being played. And Ipa music is played once in a long while for burial of, men who are men. Or great, that kind of thing. So Ipa music was one of the music they played. So the moment that Ipa music started, who is now Igwe with the council and elders, they were dancing, and then this voice came again, all of a sudden, more forcefully, and he couldn't control himself. He saw himself rush to the arena and carried the Igwe shoulder high, hit him on the ground. The crown fell off, and in the community, you guide every Igwe, like me and you know, Azuh, this your cap, you guide it jealously.
That's true.
You don't let it touch the ground.
That's true. As a matter of fact, anyway, let me not go ahead. We are online. I would have told you one story about what happened in my community about one person who treated his own cap with levity. But go ahead.
Exactly.
Let me not say it on time.
The crown fell off and rolled away. And in their community, once a crown has fallen, touched the ground, it is soiled. Whoever had that crown has to relinquish it. So Onowu, on the day he was crowned, wasn't even Igwe for more than 1 hour.
Wow.
So there was confusion, people dispersed. Onowu went home. He couldn't bear the shame, he couldn't bear it. The next morning, they saw him dead on his bed. He has taken some overdose of sleeping pills. Until they had disappeared, nobody could see him anymore, and that was how the story ended.
Wow.
So,
wow, interesting.
Ended up destroying Chede, destroying Onowu who supported it, and so on and so forth. But the other side of it is that Tobenna, because again, while trying to portray the psychological trauma some of them faced, I also wanted to bring out the fact that some of them, in spite of all that, had been successful, very, very successful, which I'm sure you know too.
Yes, I do.
So while taking that aspect of the problem, those ones who are ruined by it, we also acknowledge that some of them had made success in life. So that's what the story is all about in a nutshell.
Wow. 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 All right. I would like to find out from you, how is the book doing in the market?
So far so good, really. When it came out initially, a lot of interest, even people I didn't know, people who saw it online were asking for it to, but we are taking it step by step. The stage, for me, it's not a popular novel. It's not one of those novels for me, it's a novel I would like to be studied, more or less.
Okay.
It's an academic novel, like the kind of novel universities and schools study. So what we are trying now is to try to introduce it to schools, universities. We are hoping to get at one point to introduce it to maybe WAEC, JAM, and so on and so forth. So far so good. I'm not in a hurry to put it on some of those online booksellers and others, but we'll get there. Let's do some basic groundwork first, and then we'll get there. But the feedback has been very massive. And that's the joy of it. When people read your book and they call you the next minute. There's one lady, a Yoruba lady, she was the very first person that requested for this book when she saw it online. I was in the village when she called me. She couldn't stop talking about it. And I appreciate such people.
Interesting. So what was your first reaction when you first saw the book? I mean, considering the fact that this is your first book, what was your first reaction?
I As you know, that was the day I realized how God felt on the 7th day of creation. Honestly, I mean, it was a thing of joy, really, because all along I had always wanted to write. I knew I had a talent. Even in school, a lot of my classmates in school kept asking me, "What is the problem?" But the exigencies of life, family challenges, being the first son and having your father die at a very tender age, you're struggling with taking care of a lot of things. No time. One couldn't devote time to your passion. But thank God I was able to come around it. If I never published a novel in my life, I would have died a sad man.
I like that.
But I'm happy.
I
I'm
like
happy I did at last. And I can
wow,
tell you, anybody. I challenge anybody to read this novel. If it's not as good as any of Chinua Achebe's novels, don't take me serious anytime you see me. And I'm
all
so
right.
happy.
Okay, I like that. So how long did it take you to write the book?
Not up to a year, but again, that was one of the things COVID did for me. Because during the COVID lockdown, I was
Yes.
doing it gradually prior to COVID. I started it late 2019, and I was doing it gradually. But when we were locked down in Lagos by COVID, I had nothing else to do than to,
Complete it.
concentrate on it. And I was
All
really
right.
surprised that in less than 2-3 months of it was ready.
Wow. Wow, interesting. So what is the nicest compliment that you have received, since the book came out?
I've received a whole lot of compliments, but again, it's interesting, really, Azuh. The nicest compliment I've received came from a former colleague of mine, Patrick Adebamigbe, a Yoruba guy. He lives in the US. He even did a brief review of it, which he put on Facebook. And Patrick he even was marketing the book for me, and
Wow.
went on to send money for me to give the book out to people who I know would be interested in it but can't afford it.
Wow.
That's the level of compliments I've gotten. People were from different parts, from the UK, from the US, from Nigeria. I've not gotten anybody that read the book and had anything negative to say about it. And I'm being honest
Wow.
about it. Except for
Wow.
my very good friend, Emeka, who felt he didn't want the novel to end. So he was like, that I shouldn't have ended it when I did. Okay. But otherwise, it's been very good compliments all along.
All right. Now, after Nightfall in the Twilight, when should people expect another book from you?
I'm already putting together my ideas for the next novel, which again is going to be. I'm a traditional person. I love Igbo culture.
Thank you.
So I'm also looking at another critical aspect of Igbo culture that one needs to also bring to the fore. So I'm hoping that by 2022, before the end of 2022, the next novel should be out by the grace of God.
All right. What feeling, or rather, how does it feel to eventually adorn the toga of an author? How does it feel, to be addressed as an author?
I think you should know better, because you're my senior in that regard, But it's not anything. See, Azuh, it's not a feeling money can give you. It's not. I think bringing it to okay, let's leave creation the way God fed. Let's bring it to human feeling.
Yeah.
Something you can compare to it is the way we feel the day our wives deliver, and then you suddenly realize you're a father. You're looking at a human being. You're saying, "So this is from me. This is my son." That's the way you feel. It's not a feeling money can give. I don't know how much money that can give you that kind of feeling. You see yourself as a creator. And creativity is something, it's something that now I understand what they talk about creative license. It gives you the freedom to create life in your own way. And it's a fantastic feeling.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, it is.
All right, let's talk a little about yourself. I mean, we have about 10, 15 more minutes to go, you know. Now, you were at some point with organizations like New Breed, Ogilvy, Benson and Matter, Grant Advertising, Sheraton Hotel, the Sun Newspapers, Emotion Advertising. Of all these places, where did you find the greatest fulfillment?
Well, every stage had its own fulfillment and its own contribution to my development in life. Really, there's none you could remove. My early days as a journalist with New Breed magazine was something that I cherish till today, because I learned a whole lot from the different publishers I worked with, particularly Chris Okoli of blessed memory. You know, working with Chris, those of us who worked with Chris will tell you it was not funny. But at the end of the day, you realize that you learned a lot of lessons from Chris, you know. And then my days in advertising was very interesting and exciting. You know, advertising is in a world of its own. Okay, you go out, you meet clients, you meet all sorts of people, you interact with them, you create. There's also a lot of creativity is also involved. And so, but again, I will say that Sheraton somehow was special. By virtue of my position, okay, I was director of sales and marketing. All my life has been marketing communications, one form of marketing and one of communication. So by virtue of my position as director of sales and marketing, so I wasn't purely hotel, food and beverage. No, I mean I was. And Sheraton was an international organization. The marketing was of international standard. You know, I was so exposed. There was no part of this world I didn't travel to for one reason or the other, you know. And I learned so much. Working with people from every part of the world, Americans, Europeans, Arab, you know, Asians, Africans from different parts of the country. Sheraton was special for me till today. But again, like I said, everyone has his own experience. Sun too was interesting. I worked with great guys in Sun. You know, my MD and the deputy, Mike Awoinfa and Dimba Igbe. Antonio Onyia, these are great guys. It was very interesting working with them, and I cherish all of them. And Dimba is late. May his soul rest in peace.
All right. Now, what singular decision did you take that turned around your life?
Well, we've all taken different decisions. I think this thing I can talk about was my decision to study the course I studied in the university. Because growing up, I was quite brilliant. Everybody was like, you need to study medicine, you need to study law, you need to study engineering. But something happened along the line when I was in secondary school in Enugu here, Okonano Boys. We had a neighbor, one Mr. Peter Kinwoba from Ekulobia. He registered me in the Enugu State Library. If you know Enugu very well, Azuh, I don't know how well you know Enugu.
I was born, I grew up there.
Primary. Yes. You remember the State Library on the way to Holy Ghost?
I do.
Okay. So he registered me there, and I used to go to that library even from secondary school. I was in the boarding school, but weekends I would take permission. I had my library card, which was a rare privilege in those days. I said, I'm going to the library, and they would always give me permission. I would go spend some hours, come back to school. But funny enough, every time I went to the library, I ended up in the literature section. I ended up reading drama I read almost every drama. The Gods Are Not to Blame, all the Through a Film Darkly, all those African drama. literature,
African.
poetry. I was reading all of them. And that was how I got interested in writing. And I wanted to be a journalist cum writer, really. So you can imagine when it was time to take JAMB and choose a course to study.
Yeah.
And I said I was going to study English. Nobody could understand it. It has never been heard that English is a course you study in university. I was the first person in my whole kindred. So you can imagine the disappointment. How can you say you're going to study English? And I said that's what I wanted. And I don't regret it, because studying English, like we say in English department in Nsukka, it refines your sensibilities as a human being. And that's changed my life, my attitude to life, my attitude to my fellow human beings, my attitude to God. Because literature is everything. You study literature from different parts of the world, people's culture, people's way of life, people's failures, people's successes. You learn a lot along the line. And so, when I finished my first degree, I now said, okay, I didn't want to be a teacher. I loved teaching. I would have loved to be a teacher if I wasn't a Nigerian, unfortunately. But I had to think of something else. And that was why when I decided to go do my second degree, my master's degree in mass communication. And that's how I ended up where I am today. Otherwise, I would have been, I don't know, maybe a doctor somewhere in Ituku.
All right. Now, does High Chief Paul Onyia have any regrets?
Sincerely speaking, yeah, well, okay, but in all sincerity, I think I have every reason to be grateful to God. I have every reason to be a happy person. All the decisions, all the things I've done in my life, including the ones I decided not to do, excuse me, I'm happy for them. I have no regrets. Going for the traditional institution in my community was another major time in my life that I had to decide. It was a critical decision, because my friends would tell me, what are you going to do becoming the traditional head of your community? This is something for old people. And as at that time, I became the traditional head of my community at the age of 46.
Wow.
So you know how
Wow.
young I was.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
well educated. So it's not just 46 in the village, well educated. I was already director. I had just left Sheraton as director of sales and marketing. Okay. And my friends couldn't understand it. But it was my passion for my people, my passion for my culture. I felt I needed to. If that's where I want to dedicate my life to, people are telling me you could be a senator, you could be a governor, you could be. I said, yes, I know, but this is what I want to do for my people and my God. And I have no regrets. It's not been easy. You know what they say about Igbo? It's not been easy. But I have no regret. I thank God for everything.
All right. Now, of all the things that the Almighty God has done for you, which one are you most grateful for?
Where will I start now, Azuh? I'm grateful to God for the life He has given me. I'm grateful to God for my family, my beautiful, lovely, caring wife, my children. So proud and so happy to God for them. These are children that I have never for one day in my life cried or had a sleepless second because of any of my child. And you know what that means, Azuh? It's something every parent prays for. Because one of the things that kill a father or a mother fast is when you have children who give you sleepless nights. So I thank God for my children, and I thank God for my little achievements in life. I'm contented as a human being. I'm not a wealthy person, but I'm contented, and I thank God for everything. Yeah.
All right. It's obvious. I mean, I know you to a large extent that God has been nice to you. What more do you want from God?
I want long life, to be sincere, with good health, with my wife by my side. I don't want to live alone without her. I used to tell her, that I'm going to die before her, but in our very old age. Because I want to live there, I want to watch my children grow. I want to watch them succeed. You know what the Bible says in the book of Ecclesiastes? It says, never count a man happy until he's dead. By his children, you will know a man. I want to live and watch my children grow and succeed. And, doing my little thing, serving my community, serving my people, and serving my God. That's all I'm asking God for. Every other thing will be added onto it.
Interesting. All right, let's round off on this note.
Yes.
Back to night fall in the twilight. Just one reason everybody should get a copy of this wondrous book. Just one reason.
One reason is the fact, Azuh, that African culture is dying. This book is an encyclopedia of Igbo culture. And everybody who is interested in culture, whether you are an Igbo man, an Hausa man, a Yoruba man from any part of Africa or any part of the world, you want to know about culture, pick this book and read. If you're not, the Osu thing is just the theme, but is a book, is a study in African culture, in Igbo culture particularly. And that's one reason. Our children these days don't know much about our culture. If you don't have time to read as a father, as a mother, pick a copy for your children. Your children will learn a lot. My cousin, my younger brother's son who lives in Canada, my nephew, his name is Basil. He got this book online from Amazon, and after reading it, he said, Uncle, he called me one night and said, Uncle, from this book, if I know anything about my culture as an Igbo man, this book alone contributed to 90% of it.
Wow.
And he asked me, he said, those things in the book, are they our real culture? He was asking me. I said, yes. 99% of what is in this book is the real Igbo culture of one community. You know, there are variations in depending on the hair, but all of them almost the same thing, but there are variations. So there are variations of one culture, of one community or the other. Mostly my community, Obinago. 60, 70%, 80% is my own culture, Obinago, but generally Igbo culture. So for that reason, I think it's a book, is what every family having at least a copy or two.
Thank you very, very much, Okobo High Chief Paul Onyia, for your time, for your thoughts, for your ideas, and everything.